Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is going to be a meta update on 7.35, whatever letter it is at this point, because we did not receive a gameplay update with Crownfall. A little bit of a disappointment there, but at the end of the day, there are still Dota games to be played, and the new event's kind of cool in regards to the cosmetics that you get for just simply playing the game, and might as well be winning some games because you get triple the tokens for Crownfall when you win compared to when you lose. So let's go ahead and dive into what I see in my games, how I can really apply to you guys, why the heroes that are successful, and yeah, let's go ahead and break it down. So as always, I love to consult Dota 2 Pro Tracker and look at the heroes with the most success. Also, I like to kind of test it against heroes I'm seeing in my games, and also like how I feel like those heroes are doing in my games. I can kind of get a glimpse of how accurate I feel like my sense of the meta is. So obviously these are pro level pubs, really high MMR, so maybe you won't see the exact same things in your MMR. But I also want to talk a bit about that because I've been getting a lot of questions in my Twitch chat about what do you mean by this hero's better at high MMR? What do you mean this hero isn't good at low MMR? What does low MMR even mean? So first and foremost, I want to look at these heroes and say, yes, this is the meta for like top tier pro level pubs, and that does not necessarily mean it translates directly to low MMR pubs, because especially on heroes like Disruptor and Bane, because what happens with these heroes is that they capitalize on cores being aggressive and being +1s for kills, and so they don't really push lanes very well unless they buy Shard, which is like 15 minutes into the game, and even then they're not the best at that. And so what happens is when people aren't really doing their roles in the game, like you're playing support and you need your cores to be aggressive and push waves for you like in lower MMR, then these heroes that rely on other heroes to do that sort of stuff are naturally going to be worse at lower MMRs than they are at high MMRs. So what's really important to note when I say low MMR is there's no threshold, guys. It's not like I'm saying, hey, if you're below 4K, you suck. No. We're not talking about a specific threshold for low MMR or high MMR. We're basically just saying that the lower you go, the more these heroes are going to struggle because their teammates aren't necessarily doing the things that they need in order to set them up to be successful. But with that being said, it doesn't mean these heroes can't be played at low MMR and you can't learn them and you can't have high impact. You might just need to adjust a little bit, which is what we're going to talk about a bit when we're talking about these heroes and how good they are at my bracket, how I like them, all that kind of stuff. So first and foremost, I want to show you guys the heroes I have banned. There's the new feature, if you haven't checked it out already, in the pick screen. Rather than banning during the games, you get to ban on your hero grid at the top right. So you can click these heroes up here and choose which ones you want to ban. So the four Banes, spoilers, that I've got for you guys are Disruptor, Bane, Io, and Brewmaster. So when it comes to bans, the main things I look at is how much these heroes affect the game, how much I'm really playing them. Like if I'm not really making use of them, then I don't want them in my games if I'm not abusing them for MMR. And also just if they're annoying, to be honest. So I picked mainly supports because if we go back to Dota 2 Pro Tracker, if you look at Bane, Disruptor, Io, they're all right up here. And like unsurprisingly so, because they have some of the most picks out of all the matches, and they also have really high win rates, 53%, and then Disruptor sitting at a whopping 55%. So what you'll notice about these three supports is that they either set up kills or they make it much more difficult for you to kill their teammates. Bane has a nice save, Io has a nice save, and so Disruptor and Bane particularly are the two most like single target fuck you heroes in the game in the support role. I know you have heroes like Shadow Shaman and Lion who disable, but they kind of need like items to make that happen, while Disruptor just needs to push Glimpse on you, and Bane eventually gets an Ags, which makes his ultimate like one of the scariest disables in the entire game. But in the early game, he has Nightmare, he wins his lanes, he can even be played mid sometimes, and also just generally speaking, having BKB piercing disables right now feels really powerful. And even though Disruptor doesn't have a BKB piercing disable, his Ags in the late game does prevent the use of BKBs. So after all said and done, these heroes are lane winners. Disruptor's Q got massively buffed. That's kind of like the reason he can now play lane. You used to go Glimpse level 1 because it did more damage, but now the Q level 1 just helps you trade so well with the attack speed and movement speed slow being buffed at level 1. But yeah, these three heroes are super annoying. And then Brewmaster, if you scroll down a little bit in terms of my bans, he's sitting at a 53% win rate. And the reason why I don't like this hero is because he goes Radiance, he's an offlaner, and he's really hard to gank because if you manage to not quite burst him, then he just gets his ultimate off and his Earth Panda carries the Radiance aura, and they're going like Radiance, Manta, Octarine Core, AC, and then just killing your buildings and not even fighting you anymore. So he's a hero that's really hard to gank. Then you don't want to fight him because he has strong team fight, and then you can't fight him, and then you don't fight him, and then he sieges your base with Brewlings, and it's kind of just uninteractive gameplay in my opinion. So that's why I banned Brewmaster. Also has a high win rate. So when we're looking at the top tier heroes on Dota 2 Pro Tracker right now, we talked a bit about the supports. Io's mainly getting played with Gyro, Luna, and Marcy. Marcy's like the best aggressive carry. You can pick it with like Slark and Ursa and stuff, but those three really do seem like the creme de la creme of IO partners right now. The heroes that I'm seeing majority of my games with IO. Also, Razor has pretty good success in the games that I've seen. So yeah, IO, I wouldn't be picking this in your pubs unless you have a duos partner to be playing with you and you want to practice it. I think IO is incredibly strong right now, but if you're not making use of it and your teammates aren't making use of it, then definitely underwhelming. So Tiny getting played at 2, 3, and 4 right now. So if you're somebody that has to get role queue games, or you have to learn a new role and you want to swap from like 4 to 3 or 3 to 2, there's a lot of flex potential here. So Tiny's really nice because you can just pick him in any of those roles. And the core role, or sorry, the support roles like the Blink Mana Boots, 4-staff Yules, like Kite Tiny. The core role is becoming the Conda Tiny. You go like Echo Saber Conda. And that just makes it so that your tree throw or toss applies the Conda, and you just have that much extra burst damage, and you can pretty much one-shot people in my experience. Like, no matter how much HP they have, like, you just do insane amounts of damage with that Conda build. It kind of makes it so like the one-shotting stage goes past 20 minutes. Like in the past, people would get enough critical mass of HP to survive your combo, but once you get Conda, no support in the game is going to live. So you'll always have some target to bring down at the start of fights, and that's what Core Tiny is all about, baby. So Bounty Hunter is a hero that's been creeping up recently. It does feel super annoying in games. I've been seeing a little bit of it core, but mainly just support. And he's a hero that does kind of fall victim to the same problem that Bane and Disruptor have, even more so in the sense that he doesn't have any wave clear whatsoever, can't buy any items unless you're going the Invis Radiant strat. Don't actually do that, guys. But this hero, if you feel like you see an opportunity to fit him in at the 4 or the 5 role even, his laning stage base armor, really strong. They buffed Orb of Venom, which he likes to buy early game. They made it a bit cheaper, and he can roam very early. So overall, it just feels like there's a lot of fighting in this meta. There's a lot of ways to mess up. There's a lot of heroes with global presence like Zeus that you see coming next that just kind of give Bounty Hunter that extra oomph, where he scouts them out for you, and now you can actually kill the people that you're scouting out. What I've noticed being an issue when people are picking Bounty Hunter on my team is that the offlaner's picking something like Slardar or like Batrider support as well. And the reason why I say this is because Dispels become really strong because Bounty Hunter's all about tracking you. So people are buying like Lotus Orbs and stuff because heroes like Bat and Slardar are also countered by Lotus Orb. So be a bit careful if you have a Bounty Hunter or if you're picking Bounty Hunter that your team doesn't have too many dispellable debuffs, because that's like the bane of this hero's existence. And I've been seeing drafts kind of be like poorly put together such that like 1 or 2 items counters the entire draft. Manta's too good, Lotus Orb's too good, Yules is too good. So Zeus, what we're mainly seeing for Zeus, there's a little bit of support, but it's mainly mid, and they're pretty much all going Phylactery, Kayayasha, Shard, Manta, and then I've seen a bit of the right-click build. I'm not a fan myself. I'm a huge fan of Zeus becoming a spellcaster after the Manta Shard. The whole purpose of the Manta Shard build, I think I've even sold it to you guys in the past, is that you can clear waves without showing your hero, and then you could D-ward with your bolt, and then you can scout enemies with your ult. So the whole point of this is this hero's an insane vision hero, insane damage dealing hero, and the only way in the past to deal with him is to kill him. And now you just never show on creep waves past like the 20-minute mark. So Zeus just feels like he does too much damage, like he's too hard to play against. He's got too many builds that can make him work from game to game. He can round out a draft really well, and that early damage from ult makes the side lanes like really passive. Like I've told my teammates of numerous times, guys, they have a Zeus, let's just chill out in the safe lane. And a lot of people are over eager, I almost said ogre eager, to be aggressive in the early game, and Zeus just shuts down these side lanes being aggressive because you just have 300 damage. Boom, you know, right at minute 5. So very hard to deal with. Leshrac, very powerful mid laner right now. The Bloodstone build is just amazing. People are still going the 0-4-2 build. Sometimes they'll put a single point in stun, but he just obliterates towers like no other, has good farming potential, and overall just a lot of good items for him. Shivas, Wind Wakers, Bloodstones, BKBs, Kai'Sanjas, Blink Sheep build. You have a lot of different routes you can go. Now, Darkseer is a hero that, you know, he falls victim to this whole, if your 4 position isn't playing aggressively, feels really underwhelming in lane, tends to to give the opponent carry free farm if played improperly in the early game. You also see he doesn't have too many matches, but the people I have been seeing him played by are usually specialists like Saberlight I've had a few times in my games. And this hero feels fucking scary because he's hard to gank, because he just ion shells the creep wave, and then he builds a bunch of aura items and his team runs at you. I feel like the story is heroes that flash farm and they're hard to gank in the core role. Like Leshrak's hard to gank because he can just stand his ground and fight you with all of his damage, and Edict just does overwhelming amounts of damage early game. Zeus has leap plus Manta later, Darkseer with the ion shell, so he doesn't have to show on creep waves. That's kind of the theme of cores right now. If you notice that the supports are all about picking you off, the cores are all about heroes that have a hard time being ganked or eventually can't get bursted. So we're kind of seeing that when it comes to the heroes being... This is just kind of the formula right now, the recipe for success. It's like heroes with summons and vision acquiring abilities, heroes that like eventually become difficult to bring down. Meepo because of Ags, Brewmaster because of his split, and then he has like the status resistance from the Void Stance and the mischance from the Radiance in his passive. I haven't been seeing too much Night Stalker, but honestly, it kind of makes sense. My only concern for Night Stalker is he does have issues with summons lineups and illusion heroes, and so you got to be careful about picking this hero too early. But I might even, just based on looking at this, pick Night Stalker. We were seeing hero players like Collapse going Radiance on Night Stalker for similar reasons as Brewmaster. He's just a hard hero to gank, and he kind of just wins the team fights with his spells just by pushing ulti and seeing you. Lifestealer, same idea, hard to gank. Coddle, blast waves without showing, same idea as Zeus, backline spellcaster that has global presence because Zeus has ult, while Coddle usually rushes Boots of Travel from the mid lane, so he has that global presence that way. And as we just keep scrolling down, like the heroes with mediocre success, don't need to talk about them too much. They are picked, but like if you really need me to sell you on Pudge, you're going to see that in every one of your games anyways. Kunkka, Centaur, good catch, tanky heroes, hard to gank, prevents people from getting ganked. Ember, I'm a bit surprised by this win rate because of the fact that I just haven't seen the hero too much in my games, and I've also seen a decent amount of these Dazzles mid. Like I know there's less games of this, but I see Dazzle, Huskar, Cheese happening a lot, and so Ember tends to struggle against that. So I think as Ember, you'd probably need to see your mid matchup to make sure you don't get Dazzle, Huskard. And so if we just keep scrolling down, you're just seeing a bunch of save, heal, and tanky cores. That's literally all we're seeing. And that's the meta right now, to be honest. We're not in like the hard blade mail meta, but what we are in is a meta that people tend to be going a bunch of laning items, like 2 or 3 of the bracers, null talismans, and wraith bands, kind of just being able to stay in lane as long as possible. And then we see a lot of carries just going like Mask of Madness Manta on Luna. We're seeing like decent amount of Medusas just going Manta. You notice that a lot of these main heroes weren't carries. That's because the carry role seems like the most situational role of the patch, but being difficult to gank right now I think really is the key. So either having Manta illusions to push waves for you, or being a hero like Lifestealer with magic immunity and radiance. The thing about Lifestealer compared to Jug, for instance, is that Jug, his oh shit button is Omni Slash to kill you, which isn't what we're talking about with cores right now, while Lifestealer's oh shit button is Infest, which saves one of his teammates or himself. So it's so much on cores right now about not being killable, getting those items up, and you can go like 4th, 5th items like Khan does for burst on cores. A lot of cores like Morph and Luna now suddenly have burst damage that they didn't previously have. So a lot of these cores, they're all about surviving in the first couple items, and that's what seems to be the meta of just don't die to these supports right now, because the supports, guys, you need to be kill hungry, you need to be looking to be aggressive, and if your team is behind, really looking to sit behind a core, because it just seems like a run at you meta. Once again, the map's very open, a lot of creeps to hit, and heroes that don't generally have a safe way to farm creep waves, like Sven, like Void even, sitting at a below 50% win rate in my bracket as well. Finally, these heroes are starting to feel a bit underwhelming. So keep in mind that these early game items in the lane into these like farming accelerating items, we're seeing even offlaners, we're not really seeing rushing blinks. You're seeing like double bracer into like Eul Scepter, or heroes like Darkseer we saw that just get big items like Greaves. None of this like early active blink dagger stuff, but more of this like walk at you and catch you kind of heroes. They at least go some sort of like mid-tier item, like the Kunkkas are going Blade Mail, the Centaurs before Blink are going Veil, Dooms are going Veil and then Blink. So the pace of the game seems to really be ramping up right around 15 minutes, because that's when people are getting these like secondary items or their farm item is completed with the Manta, with the Battle Furies, with the Maelstroms. Maelstrom receiving that huge nerf. I am leaning away from Maelstrom heroes in general. It doesn't mean it's a bad item, and if a hero is meant to buy a Maelstrom, like the Wind Ranger you saw there, still decent win rates. Don't not buy Maelstrom on heroes that rely on it, but it just means to pick those heroes a little bit less often. So one of the last things I wanted to do was share my hero grid with you guys. So generally speaking, when I'm looking at the mid-roll, I'm really enjoying Sniper Zeus as backline damage dealer. Sniper's win rate is actually pretty decent. And then I have like a couple like melee tanky guys. I have Leshrac, one of my favorites. And then I have Huskar looking to cheese people. So this is kind of like the, I don't really play mid. I play mainly offlane and carry. Mid lane hero pool for this patch. In terms of carry, I know it's my main role, so I play it the most, so I'm gonna have the most heroes no matter what. But I think this really shows like how important I think it is to have some diversity in the carry role right now. I think all of these heroes are viable sometimes, and I don't even have like a particular order right now because I feel like the carry role is so situational. You either have to pick like the Gyro Lunas with the IOs, or you have to like, you know, 10th pick the PLs when they're uncountered, you know, or like pick Bloodseeker because you see Pango, or Anti-Mage because you're against like Darkseer or Sand King offlane, you know. So all these heroes I think are very situational, and I would be aiming to pick carries at least 3rd, 4th, or later on in the draft because I don't think there's any like super broken carries, and the only one I would probably first pick simply because she's so reliable is Luna, but I don't even think she's like super broken. But if you're stuck first picking, that would be the only one that I would first pick. When we're looking at the offlane, so I have a few heroes here that are kind of a meme. Disruptor's mainly just a block pick. Support Disruptor, so I don't have to lane against it. And then I was also dealing with a lot of Clockworks. You actually saw him creeping up there, so I put Morana there specifically for Clockwork 5. And then all these other heroes are just kind of like the ones we saw. Super durable, stand in lane kind of guys. And that's what I'm looking at in the off lane. Biggest weakness for me as an offlaner right now is that I don't play Brewmaster. I do believe he's the best offlaner of the patch. If you feel like learning your micro, maybe go watch Monkeys Forever stream. I'm sure you'll get your healthy dose of Brewmaster there. And for supports, Bane, Disruptor. I can't emphasize enough. These two heroes are S tier on their own tier. And then for position 4, you saw I have Bounty Hunter Tiny. These were already before I looked at the thing. I have not adjusted my grid since looking at Pro Tracker, so looks like I was on the right track there. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. That will be the end of my meta update for this week. I'll try to keep you guys posted. I am going to be going to Birmingham, not working the event, but I will be there as a spectator. So if you want to come say hi, I would love to meet you guys and, you know, take a picture, maybe give a little hug. No, I'm kidding. Don't be weird, guys. But yeah, I'd love to see you guys there. And I'll try to be getting some content out while I'm there, but I can't guarantee anything. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time.